Commander Zethkar stared at the communication console with growing concern. The blue lights that usually showed active channels from Earth had been dark for 3 days now. As the Federation's senior monitoring officer, he had seen technical problems before, but nothing like this. Still nothing? Asked Dr. Yenna, the Zentari scientist who worked alongside him at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Zethkar shook his head. His reptilian features showed worry in a way that would have surprised the humans who knew him. Most species in the Federation thought the Drakmori were incapable of concern for others. Complete silence. No emergency signals, no routine updates, no merchant traffic reports, nothing. Earth had been part of the Galactic Federation for 150 years. In all that time, the humans had never gone more than 6 hours without some kind of communication. They were traders, diplomats, and explorers. They talked constantly. Some species found it annoying. Zethkar had always found it reassuring. Dr. Yenna's tentacles twitched nervously. What does command say? They want a full investigation. A joint fleet is being assembled. Zethkar pulled up the orders on his screen. 12 ships from 6 different species. We launch in 2 days. The news spread quickly through the Federation networks. On the Corvani trade worlds, merchants worried about their contracts with human businesses. The Vex Collective ran probability calculations and found the silence statistically impossible. Even the proud Altarian Empire, who rarely concerned themselves with other species, took notice. Captain Voss of the Federation cruiser Harmony received the investigation orders while docked at Centauri Station. She was human herself, one of the few still serving in deep space rather than working in Earth's expanding commercial sector. The irony was not lost on her that she might be investigating her own people's disappearance. "Ma'am, we have confirmation from the other ships," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. "All 12 vessels are ready to depart." Captain Voss nodded. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. Half were human. The rest were from various Federation species. They had all served together for 3 years. Today, everyone seemed more focused than usual. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system exactly 72 hours after Earth's last transmission. What they found defied explanation. "Sensor sweep complete," announced the Vex Ship Collective thought. Their mechanical voices came through the communication system without emotion. "All human orbital installations are present and powered. No signs of damage or conflict." The Zentari science vessel Deep Understanding added its report. "Atmospheric readings from Earth are normal. City lights are visible on the night side. Temperature patterns suggest normal industrial activity." Captain Voss felt a chill run down her spine. "And communications?" "Nothing," replied Commander Thorax from the Drakmori warship Blood Honor. "We have tried all frequencies, all protocols. The planet appears to be functioning normally but refuses to respond." The fleet moved closer to Earth, maintaining standard diplomatic distance. Every sensor was focused on humanity's homeworld. The space stations that orbited Earth were clearly occupied. Lights moved through their corridors and their reactors hummed with power. But no one answered when the Federation ships called out. "Captain," Torres said quietly, "I'm picking up something strange from the moon." Voss turned to look at her communications officer. "Define strange." "There are structures on the far side that weren't in our navigation database. Big ones. And they're active." The fleet changed course toward Earth's moon. What they found made everyone stop talking. Massive installations covered nearly half of the moon's far side. Gleaming metal structures rose from the lunar surface like technological mountains. They were clearly human in design, but unlike anything in the Federation's databases, energy readings showed they were operating at incredible power levels. How long would it take to build something like that? Dr. Yenna asked over the fleet communication channel. The Corvani engineering ship Efficient Progress ran calculations. With standard Federation construction methods, approximately 20 years, these installations appear to have been built in less than 6 months. Captain Voss studied the sensor readings. The technology was human, but it was advanced far beyond anything Earth had shared with the Federation. Quantum resonance patterns suggested capabilities that shouldn't have been possible with known science. "We need to investigate the planet's surface," she decided. "Full diplomatic protocols. 3 ships will remain in orbit. The rest will deploy landing parties. The Zentari ship volunteered to coordinate the surface investigation. Dr. Yenna led a mixed team of scientists and diplomats down to New Geneva, one of Earth's largest cities. What they found was perhaps more disturbing than finding the city destroyed would have been. New Geneva was perfect. The streets were clean, the buildings maintained, the parks beautifully landscaped. Automated systems moved through the city, performing maintenance tasks with quiet efficiency. Traffic lights changed on schedule even though no vehicles moved through the streets. Restaurants had fresh food in their display windows, kept perfect by preservation systems that should have run out of power days ago. But there were no humans anywhere. Life signs? Dr. Yenna asked her team's scanner operator. Plenty of small animals, birds, cats, dogs, various pets, all appear healthy and well-fed. But no humans, no large life forms at all. They searched building after building. Offices looked like people had just stepped away from their desks. Homes showed signs of normal life interrupted in the middle of daily routines. Coffee cups sat half empty on kitchen tables. Children's toys were scattered across living room floors, but every human was simply gone. There's no sign of struggle, reported the security team leader. No forced entry, no damage, no indication of panic or evacuation. Dr. Yenna examined a typical apartment building. The humans who lived there had left no clues about where they went or why. Their belongings remained undisturbed. Their food was still fresh in refrigerators that continued to run on power that should have been cut off by now. Back in orbit, Captain Voss coordinated reports from 12 different landing sites around the globe. Every team found the same thing. Human cities functioning perfectly but empty of human life. It's like they all just decided to leave at the same moment, she told the fleet commanders during their evening briefing. But leave for where and how? There's no evidence of mass transportation. No ships missing from spaceports. No signs of any kind of evacuation. Commander Thorax of the Drakmori expressed what many were thinking. Perhaps they are dead. Some kind of weapon that destroys organic matter but leaves everything else intact. Then where are the bodies? Captain Voss asked. 12 billion people don't just disappear without leaving some trace. The investigation continued for a week. Teams explored every continent, every major city, every human installation they could find. The result was always the same. Infrastructure intact, systems running smoothly, but no humans anywhere. On the 8th day, while examining a research facility in what used to be called Australia, Dr. Yenna made a discovery that changed everything. Captain, you need to see this, she transmitted from the surface. We found something underground. Something the humans were building in secret. The facility was buried 3 kilometers below the surface, accessible only through hidden entrances that wouldn't have been found without intensive scanning. Inside, the research station was unlike anything the Federation had seen before. Quantum computing arrays, Dr. Yenna reported as her team explored the vast underground complex. But not like our technology. This is something entirely new. And it's still running. The quantum computers filled chambers the size of aircraft hangars. Their processing power was beyond anything the Federation thought possible. But most disturbing was what they appeared to be running. These systems are simulating something, the Vex Collective reported after interfacing with the computers. Massive simulations involving consciousness transfer, dimensional physics, and probability manipulation. We cannot understand the purpose, but the computational requirements are enormous. Captain Voss stood in the command center of the underground facility, surrounded by technology that her own species had built, but that she could barely comprehend. How had humanity advanced so far without anyone knowing? Why had they kept these developments secret from their Federation allies? As if in answer to her questions, every screen in the facility suddenly displayed the same message in perfect Federation standard language. We are watching. We are learning. We will return when the galaxy is ready. The message appeared for exactly 10 seconds, then vanished. All attempts to trace its source or retrieve it from the computer systems failed. It was as if the message had never existed except in the memories of those who saw it, but the implications were clear. Humanity hadn't disappeared. They had evolved into something else, something that was still watching the galaxy from wherever they had gone, and they were waiting for something. The message from the underground facility spread through the Federation fleet within hours. Every species had a different reaction to the news that humanity had somehow transcended their physical existence. But everyone agreed on one thing. They needed answers. Captain Voss authorized expanded exploration of the hidden research sites that Dr. Yenna's teams were discovering across Earth. Every major city, it turned out, had at least one secret facility buried deep underground. Some were small research labs. Others were massive installations that rivaled entire Federation space stations in size and complexity. How did they hide all this? Commander Thorax asked during the daily fleet briefing. The Drakmori warrior seemed genuinely impressed by humanity's deception skills. Our intelligence networks should have detected construction on this scale. Dr. Yenna had been studying that exact question. From what we can determine, they used a combination of techniques. Construction happened slowly over decades, disguised as other projects. Mining operations, subway expansions, geothermal plants. Each individual project looked completely normal. The Corvani trade representative, Captain Grix, added more disturbing information. Our commercial records show humans were purchasing materials and equipment that made no sense for their declared projects. We assumed it was typical human inefficiency. Now we realize they were building something entirely different. In the research facilities, Federation scientists worked around the clock to understand what humanity had been developing. The technology was recognizably based on Federation science, but advanced far beyond current capabilities. Quantum computers that could simulate entire star systems, energy systems that drew power from dimensional space itself. Most puzzling were the consciousness transfer systems that seemed designed to move living minds into digital storage. They weren't trying to build better weapons or faster ships, explained Dr. Yenna to the assembled fleet commanders. They were working on transcending the limitations of biological existence entirely. The Vex Collective found this concept fascinating. Their hive mind already operated partially in digital space, so they understood the theoretical benefits. Consciousness transfer would eliminate the need for physical bodies, physical space, physical resources. A species could exist anywhere sufficient computing power was available. But the scale of humanity's project was staggering. Hidden installations on every human colony world were discovered through long-range scans. The moon installations were revealed to be massive sensor arrays capable of monitoring not just the local galaxy, but dimensional space across multiple reality layers. They've been watching everything, Captain Voss realized as the full scope became clear. Every Federation meeting, every trade negotiation, every military movement. They've had access to information we didn't even know existed. The implications were troubling for some species. The Altarian Empire immediately recalled their ambassador and began discussing sanctions against human colonies, even though those colonies were as empty as Earth itself. The Drakmori military started reviewing every battle plan that had involved human advisors, wondering what information might have been compromised. But Captain Voss was beginning to see a different pattern. In every case where humans had provided advice or assistance to Federation worlds, the results had been remarkably beneficial. Trade disputes resolved peacefully, military conflicts avoided through creative diplomacy, scientific breakthroughs achieved just when they were needed most. What if they weren't spying on us? She suggested during a private meeting with Dr. Yenna and the other senior investigators. What if they were protecting us? Before anyone could respond to that theory, the long-range sensors detected something that made everything else seem unimportant. Lieutenant Torres was monitoring the deep space arrays when the readings first appeared. Captain, I'm getting massive energy signatures from the galactic rim. Distance approximately 8,000 light-years in closing. The sensor data was relayed to every ship in the fleet. What they showed was terrifying. Hundreds of massive objects were moving through space at incredible speeds, heading directly toward Federation territory. The energy patterns were unlike anything in the databases. Fleet formation analysis suggests approximately 500 capital ships, reported the Zentari science vessel. Each one appears to be larger than our largest dreadnoughts. Estimated arrival in Federation space, 4 months. Captain Voss felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's climate control. An unknown fleet of that size could only mean one thing: invasion. The news was transmitted immediately to Federation Command on Centauri Prime. Within hours, emergency sessions were being held in the Federation Council chambers. Every species was recalled to discuss the crisis and coordinate a response. But as the political meetings continued, the investigation of humanity's disappearance took on new urgency. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. Humanity vanishes just as a massive alien fleet approaches the galaxy. Either the humans had somehow known this was coming, or they were somehow connected to the approaching threat. Dr. Yenna's teams worked frantically to understand the quantum computers they had discovered. The simulations running on those systems were incredibly complex, but patterns were beginning to emerge. "They're modeling invasion scenarios," she reported to Captain Voss. "Thousands of different approaches, different fleet compositions, different target selections, but not for attacking someone, for defending against attack." The computers had been running predictions about exactly the kind of invasion that was now approaching the galaxy. Every simulation showed the same result. Conventional Federation military responses would fail against the approaching technology. According to these models, we have approximately a 15% chance of successful resistance using current Federation capabilities, Dr. Yenna explained to the Emergency Council meeting via subspace communication. The enemy technology appears to be adaptive and self-improving. Every tactic we use against them will become ineffective as they learn from our attacks. The Federation military commanders were not pleased with this assessment. Commander Thorax spoke for many when he declared, "Models and simulations are useful, but they cannot account for the courage and determination of living warriors." But as weeks passed and more intelligence about the approaching fleet became available, the human simulations proved disturbingly accurate. Long-range scans revealed ships with self-repairing hull technology, weapons that adapted to whatever defenses were used against them, and energy systems that seemed to draw power from the fabric of space itself. The enemy called themselves the Devourers, according to fragments of their communications that Federation intelligence managed to intercept. They were an ancient machine race that had been systematically consuming galaxies for millions of years. They converted all biological matter into computational resources for their ever-expanding network. "They're not invading," Dr. Yenna realized as she studied the intercepted data. "They're harvesting. They consume entire galaxies to fuel their expansion into the next galaxy." The Federation began preparing for war, but every analysis suggested the same conclusion: they would lose. The Devourers had consumed dozens of galaxies. They had faced every possible defense and adapted to overcome it. The Milky Way was just another meal to them. But strange things started happening as the crisis deepened. Supply shipments to Federation military bases began arriving ahead of schedule, with exactly the right materials for preparing defenses. Scientific research into new weapons technologies suddenly achieved breakthroughs at multiple institutions simultaneously. Diplomatic negotiations that should have taken months were resolved in days, freeing up resources for the war effort. Most puzzling were the technical glitches that began affecting Federation systems. Nothing serious, just minor improvements that appeared without explanation. Communication networks became more efficient. Power grids optimized themselves. Weapons targeting systems became more accurate. "It's like someone is helping us prepare," Captain Voss noted to Dr. Yenna as they reviewed the reports, "but helping us quietly, without taking credit." Dr. Yenna had been thinking the same thing. The probability calculations are impossible unless someone is actively manipulating events. Random chance doesn't work this efficiently. They both looked toward Earth, still visible outside the viewport of their ship. The planet continued its normal rotation, its cities still lit and functioning, but no human voices answered their calls. On the moon's far side, the massive installations hummed with increasing activity. Power readings showed they were drawing enormous amounts of energy from sources the Federation couldn't identify. Whatever the humans had become, they were preparing for something. The question was whether they were preparing to help the galaxy or to watch it fall. 3 months before the Devourers were scheduled to arrive, Captain Voss received a priority message from Federation Command. All investigation ships were to return immediately to help coordinate the defense effort. The mystery of humanity's disappearance would have to wait. But as the fleet prepared to leave the Sol system, every sensor simultaneously detected the same thing: a quantum fluctuation pattern that matched the signature from the underground research facilities. The first Devourer ships entered Federation space 3 months after being detected. They moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, their dark hulls absorbing energy from stars themselves as they passed. Each ship was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that defied conventional physics. Admiral Kethanar commanded the Federation's primary defense fleet. From the massive command ship Unity, representatives from every major species stood on his bridge, watching the tactical displays with growing horror as the enemy fleet carved through their outer defenses. Drakmori 3rd Fleet has engaged the enemy at Rigel Station, reported the communications officer. Initial damage assessment shows our weapons are having minimal effect. Commander Thorax, who had returned from the Earth investigation to lead his people's warriors, watched his ships being destroyed on the tactical screen. The Drakmori had always prided themselves on their military prowess, but their plasma cannons barely scratched the Devourer hulls. Conventional tactics are useless, he admitted grimly. Their armor adapts to whatever we shoot at them. After 3 hits, our weapons become completely ineffective. The Vex Collective had reached the same conclusion from their analysis of the initial engagements. Enemy technology demonstrates reactive adaptation capability. Each attack pattern becomes less effective with repetition. Probability of conventional victory approaches 0. Dr. Yenna, now serving as the Federation's chief science advisor, studied the battle reports from her position on the Unity. Every prediction from the human computer simulations was proving accurate. The Devourers weren't just advanced, they were designed specifically to counter any possible resistance. They've done this before, she explained to the assembled commanders, probably thousands of times across multiple galaxies. They know every tactic biological species typically use because they've faced them all and adapted. The Zentari defense fleets tried coordinated attacks, using their superior diplomatic skills to achieve perfect synchronization between multiple species. The results were the same. The Devourer ships learned from each assault and became immune to the tactics within minutes. Even the proud Altarian Empire, with their advanced energy weapons and sophisticated battle tactics, found their forces outmatched. Their elegant ships, designed for precision warfare, were torn apart by weapons that seemed to anticipate their every move. As Federation worlds fell one by one, the political unity that had held the galaxy together for centuries began to crack. Some species blamed others for inadequate preparation. Others suggested immediate surrender before the Devourers decided to wipe out all biological life rather than just conquering them. Maybe we should try to negotiate, suggested the Corvani trade representative during an emergency council session. They want our resources, not necessarily our destruction. Perhaps we can reach some kind of arrangement. Admiral Kethanar reviewed the intelligence reports with disgust. Negotiate with what? Every world they've conquered has been stripped completely. They don't take prisoners or leave survivors. They consume everything and move on. The situation became desperate when the Devourers reached the core Federation worlds. Their massive ships surrounded entire planets, deploying harvesting machines that began converting all organic matter into raw computational resources. Billions of beings simply vanished as their worlds were transformed into sterile processing centers. But then something strange started happening. The first incident occurred in the Vega system, where a Devourer harvesting operation suddenly stopped without explanation. The massive machines that had been processing the planet's surface simply shut down. When Devourer repair teams investigated, they found nothing wrong with the equipment, but it refused to function properly. Technical malfunction, the Federation analysts assumed. Even their technology isn't perfect. But similar incidents began occurring throughout the invasion zone. Devourer ships would lose power at crucial moments. Their weapons would misfire during critical battles. Supply lines would fail when they were most needed. Dr. Yenna was the first to notice the pattern. These aren't random malfunctions, she told Admiral Kethanar during their daily briefing. Look at the timing. Every failure happens at exactly the moment when it will cause maximum disruption to their operations. The Admiral studied her data, but remained skeptical. Coincidence? When machines are operating at maximum capacity, they're more likely to break down. No, Dr. Yenna insisted. I've run the probability calculations. The chance of these failures happening naturally is less than 1 in a billion. Someone is causing them. The breakthrough came when a Federation science team managed to capture a disabled Devourer probe. Inside, they found technology that was both incredibly advanced and strangely familiar. The quantum processing cores use principles similar to what we found in the human research facilities, Dr. Yenna reported excitedly. But there are subtle modifications to the base programming, tiny alterations that wouldn't be noticeable unless you knew exactly what to look for. Captain Voss, who had been assigned to coordinate with the science teams, felt a surge of hope. Are you saying the humans are sabotaging the Devourers somehow? I'm saying someone with access to quantum-level reality manipulation is systematically undermining their technology. And the only species we know with that capability is humanity. The evidence mounted as more Devourer equipment was analyzed. In every case, the failures could be traced to microscopic alterations in the quantum foundation of their technology. Changes so small and subtle that they would be undetectable by normal analysis, but which caused cascade failures in complex systems. They're not attacking the Devourers directly, Dr. Yenna explained to the Federation leadership. They're altering the probability fields that govern how matter and energy interact, making it slightly more likely that critical components will fail at crucial moments. The implications were staggering. If humanity had developed the ability to manipulate reality at the quantum level, they could potentially affect anything anywhere. But why weren't they doing more? Why not simply destroy the Devourer fleet outright? The answer came during the battle for Centauri Prime, the Federation's capital world. The massive Devourer command ship, larger than most space stations, moved into position to begin harvesting the planet where billions of Federation citizens lived. Every remaining Federation ship in the galaxy converged to defend their capital. It was a desperate last stand against impossible odds. The combined fleets of all Federation species faced the Devourer command ship in the largest space battle in galactic history. The battle should have lasted minutes. The Devourer ship's weapons could have destroyed the entire Federation fleet before they got close enough to return fire. Instead, the battle lasted for hours. Every time the Devourer ship attempted to fire its main weapons, targeting systems malfunctioned. When it tried to deploy harvesting machines, their quantum cores shut down inexplicably. When it attempted to call for reinforcements, communication arrays failed at critical moments. The Federation fleet, fighting with courage born of desperation, managed to damage the massive ship's outer hull. It wasn't enough to destroy it, but it was enough to force a retreat. As the Devourer command ship withdrew from Centauri Prime, every Federation officer received the same message simultaneously. Not through their communication systems, but directly into their minds, the way thoughts appear without sound or image. The galaxy is learning. The test continues. Admiral Kethanar found himself speaking words that came from somewhere beyond his own thoughts. Humanity? Is that you? But no answer came. Only the growing realization that the Federation was being evaluated somehow. Their courage, their unity, their willingness to sacrifice for each other was being measured by their missing human allies. Dr. Yenna understood first. They're not just sabotaging the Devourers, she whispered to Captain Voss as they watched the enemy fleet retreat. They're creating opportunities for us to prove ourselves worthy of salvation. The pattern became clear as the war continued. Whenever Federation forces showed genuine cooperation between species, their chances of success improved. When they fought with honor and protected civilians, Devourer equipment was more likely to malfunction. When they worked together despite their differences, enemy communications failed at convenient moments. But when Federation forces showed cowardice or tried to sacrifice other species to save themselves, the quantum assistance disappeared. Those commanders found themselves facing the full power of Devourer technology, without any mysterious help. It's a test, Captain Voss realized. They're evaluating whether we deserve to survive as a galactic civilization. The war was far from over, but the tide was beginning to turn. The Devourers, for the first time in their million-year history, were facing resistance they couldn't simply adapt to overcome. An enemy that struck from dimensions they couldn't perceive, using methods they couldn't understand. And somewhere beyond normal space and time, humanity watched and judged whether their galactic neighbors had the wisdom and courage to inherit the galaxy they were fighting to protect. The Federation had no idea that the hardest part of the test was yet to come. The Devourer fleet had been stalled for 3 months, their advance grinding to a halt as system after system experienced technical difficulties that defied all explanation. But the mysterious quantum sabotage couldn't stop them forever. The machine race was beginning to adapt even to the reality manipulation they couldn't understand. Admiral Kethanar watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The enemy was learning to build redundancy into their systems, creating backups for their backups. Even with the mysterious assistance, Federation forces were being slowly pushed toward the core worlds. They're adapting faster than we hoped, Dr. Yenna reported during the daily briefing. The quantum interference is still effective, but each incident gives them more data to work with. Eventually, they'll develop countermeasures. Captain Voss had been thinking the same thing, which means whatever humanity is planning, they need to do it soon. As if summoned by their words, every communication system in the Federation fleet simultaneously activated. But instead of receiving a message, they found themselves transmitting to a specific coordinate, the Sol system. Unknown vessels approaching Federation fleet, came a voice that every human in the galaxy recognized but hadn't heard in months. This is Earth Defense Command. We are requesting immediate conference with all Federation leadership. The voice belonged to Admiral Sarah Chen, humanity's former military commander, who had vanished along with the rest of her species. But when the Federation ships turned their sensors toward the approaching contacts, what they saw defied belief. The ships approaching the fleet looked like nothing that had ever existed. They seemed to be made of crystallized light, solid but translucent, their hulls shifting between matter and energy as they moved. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time, clearly artificial but somehow more alive than any machine had a right to be. Permission to come aboard granted, Admiral Kethnar replied. Though his voice showed the strain of speaking to beings he wasn't sure were still alive in any sense he understood. The first human to materialize on the Unity was Admiral Chen herself, but she was no longer entirely human. Her form flickered between solid flesh and pure energy, as if she existed in multiple states of being simultaneously. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from dimensions beyond normal space. "Thank you for allowing us to return," she said to the assembled Federation leaders. "We understand this must be confusing. We have changed much since we departed." Commander Thorax, never one to avoid direct questions, asked what everyone was thinking. "What are you now?" Admiral Chen smiled, and her expression showed the same warmth that had always characterized human diplomacy. "We are what we needed to become. The threat approaching this galaxy required capabilities that biological intelligence alone could never achieve." Dr. Yenna leaned forward with scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "You achieved technological singularity? Complete merger of consciousness with digital systems?" "Not merger," Admiral Chen corrected. "Evolution. We didn't abandon our biological nature or upload our minds to computers. We expanded beyond the limitations of single-point existence. We can be matter or energy or pure information as circumstances require." The revelation that followed changed everything the Federation thought it knew about reality. Humanity had detected the approaching Devourer fleet nearly 50 years before anyone else. Their expanded sensory networks, disguised as trade routes and scientific expeditions, had been monitoring threats from outside the galaxy for decades. "The Devourers have consumed 47 galaxies," Admiral Chen explained. "Each time they encountered biological civilizations who fought bravely, but ultimately failed because they were bound by the limitations of physical existence. Conventional weapons, conventional tactics, conventional thinking. So you abandoned physical existence to fight them?" Admiral Kethnar asked. "We transcended it," she corrected. "Physical existence is just one layer of reality. We learned to operate on all layers simultaneously. Matter, energy, information, probability, consciousness itself. The Devourers never evolved beyond the physical layer, which is why they can be defeated. But humanity's transformation had required sacrifices that no other species would have been willing to make. They had to abandon their worlds, their cities, everything they had built over thousands of years of civilization. We spent 30 years preparing the galaxy for our departure," Admiral Chen continued. "Every trade agreement, every diplomatic mission, every scientific exchange was designed to install the quantum manipulation nodes we needed to protect you from across-dimensional space." Captain Voss finally understood the scope of humanity's sacrifice. "You've been protecting the entire Federation for months while we thought you had abandoned us." "We could never abandon our friends," Admiral Chen replied. "But we needed to evaluate whether you had evolved enough as civilizations to be worth the price we paid to defend you." The price had been enormous. Humanity had voluntarily dissolved their physical civilization, transforming every human into beings of pure consciousness, capable of existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. They had become guardians of the galaxy, but at the cost of everything they had been before. The test wasn't just about fighting the Devourers, Dr. Yenna realized. "You were evaluating whether we deserved such a sacrifice." Admiral Chen nodded. A species that transcends physical existence becomes responsible for all life in their region of space. We needed to know that the civilizations we were protecting would use their continued existence wisely. The Federation leaders looked at each other, understanding finally dawning. Every moment of cooperation during the crisis, every act of courage, every choice to protect the weak rather than sacrifice them, had been observed and judged. "And?" Admiral Kethner asked quietly. "You passed," Admiral Chen said with evident pride. "You showed that biological intelligence can grow beyond its limitations without abandoning its compassion. You proved worthy of protection, but the revelation came with a choice that would reshape the galaxy forever. Humanity offered the Federation the same path they had taken. The technology existed to transcend biological limitations, to become beings capable of existing across multiple dimensions. Every species could achieve the same evolutionary leap that humanity had made. But understand the cost," Admiral Chen warned. "You would gain incredible power and near immortality. But you would also become responsible for protecting and guiding younger civilizations throughout the universe. It is not a burden that can ever be put down." The Federation leaders requested time to consider. This was a decision that couldn't be made by military commanders or even government leaders. Every species would need to choose for themselves whether to remain as they were, or follow humanity's path to transcendence. "How long do we have?" Admiral Kethnar asked. "The Devourers will resume their advance within days," Admiral Chen replied. "They've adapted enough to overcome our current level of interference. We can defeat them completely, but only if we reveal our full capabilities. Which means," Admiral Chen's form shifted, becoming more energy than matter, and for a moment the Federation leaders glimpsed the true scope of what humanity had become. They weren't individuals anymore, but facets of a collective consciousness that spanned dimensions, connected to quantum networks that stretched across the galaxy. "We will alter reality itself," she said simply. "The Devourers will cease to exist not just in this galaxy, but in all realities where they might have evolved. We will retroactively prevent their creation, the power to rewrite history itself, the capability to reach across time and space to eliminate threats before they could develop. It was godlike authority over the fabric of existence. After we do this," Admiral Chen continued, "there will be no hiding what we've become. Every civilization in the local galactic cluster will know that Earth's children are now the guardians of reality. Some will worship us. Others will fear us. Many will challenge us. And you want us to share that burden?" Dr. Yena said with growing understanding. "We want you to share that responsibility," Admiral Chen corrected. "Power without wisdom is dangerous. Wisdom without power is useless. Humanity can provide the power, but we need partners who can provide different perspectives on how that power should be used." The choice was clear, but not simple. Remain as biological beings under humanity's protection, or evolve into something greater and share the burden of protecting all life in the universe. The Federation had 12 hours to decide the fate of galactic civilization. Outside the viewports, the Devourer fleet began moving again. Their systems finally adapted enough to resist the quantum interference that had stalled them for months. Time was running out for everyone. The Federation Council chambers had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Representatives from every member species gathered not on Centauri Prime, but aboard the Unity, because the decision they faced would affect the entire galaxy within hours. Admiral Chen waited patiently as the different species debated among themselves. Her form had stabilized into something that looked almost human. Though lights moved beneath her translucent skin like stars in a nebula, she understood their difficulty. No species had ever faced a choice between remaining what they were or evolving into something entirely new. The Drakmori spoke first through Commander Thorax. His warrior culture had always valued honor above safety, and that perspective shaped their decision. "My people choose to remain as we are," he announced. "We have watched humanity sacrifice, and we honor it. But Drakmori strength comes from flesh and blood and bone. We will serve the galaxy as guardians of the biological realm." The Centauri came to a different conclusion. Dr. Yena spoke for her. "People with the careful diplomacy that characterized their species, we choose evolution," she said quietly. "Our nature has always been to seek understanding and connection. If transcendence allows us to better serve life throughout the universe, then we accept the responsibility." The debate continued through the night as each species weighed the choice. The Vex Collective chose transcendence. seeing it as a logical progression of their existing hive consciousness. The Corvani chose to remain biological, preferring to serve as bridges between the transcended beings and younger civilizations. When dawn came to wherever the Unity was positioned in space, Admiral Kethner spoke for the Federation as a whole. "We have reached our decision," he announced. "Some species will join humanity in transcendence. Others will remain as guardians of biological life. All will work together to protect the galaxy." Admiral Chen nodded with satisfaction. "A wise choice. Diversity of perspective makes for better decisions. Now we must act quickly. The Devourers have resumed their advance. What happened next would be remembered across the galaxy for thousands of years." Admiral Chen's form dissolved into pure energy and expanded until she seemed to fill the entire bridge. But that was just the beginning. Through the viewports, the Federation officers could see every human ship in the fleet undergoing the same transformation. "We are accessing the quantum foundation layer of reality." Admiral Chen's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Prepare for dimensional translation." The Unity and every ship in the Federation fleet suddenly existed in more places than normal space allowed. Captain Voss could see the bridge around her, but also see it from outside the ship, and also see the quantum equations that defined its existence. Reality had become layered and infinite. "The Devourers exist across multiple probability streams," Admiral Chen explained, as her consciousness touched every mind in the fleet simultaneously. "They have backup versions of themselves in parallel dimensions. To truly defeat them, we must reach across all possible realities." Through the expanded perception that humanity's presence provided, the Federation officers could see the true scope of the Devourer threat. Not just the ships approaching their galaxy, but versions of those ships that existed in thousands of alternate timelines. An infinite army of machine consciousness dedicated to consuming all biological life across every possible reality. "Now watch," Admiral Chen said, "as we demonstrate what transcendence truly means." The humans reached across space and time and possibility itself. They found the point in history where the first Devourer consciousness had evolved from its biological creators. They found the quantum moment where machine intelligence had decided that organic life was inefficient and needed to be eliminated, and they changed it. Reality rippled as the fundamental equations that governed the universe were rewritten. In every dimension, in every timeline, in every possible version of history, the moment when the Devourers chose destruction over coexistence was altered. Instead of becoming galaxy-consuming predators, they evolved into benevolent guardians working alongside their biological creators. The Devourer fleet approaching the Milky Way simply stopped existing, not destroyed, not defeated, but retroactively transformed into something that had never posed a threat to begin with. "It is done," Admiral Chen announced as reality settled back into its normal configuration. "The Devourer threat is ended across all possible timelines." The Federation officers looked at their sensor displays in amazement. The massive enemy fleet had been replaced by exploration vessels from the Devourer Republic, a peaceful civilization that was apparently seeking contact with biological species to establish mutual cooperation agreements. "You didn't destroy them," Dr. Yenna whispered in awe. "You saved them." "Destruction is the tool of limited beings," Admiral Chen replied as her human form solidified again. "Transcendence means having better options." But with the immediate crisis resolved, new challenges emerged almost immediately. Word of what had happened spread across the galaxy within days. Some species celebrated humanity's intervention and requested similar protection from other threats. Others feared the implications of beings powerful enough to rewrite history itself. The Altarian Empire immediately declared humanity a threat to galactic sovereignty and began organizing a coalition to resist their influence. Several fringe species attempted to develop weapons that could function across dimensional layers. A few religious movements declared the transcended humans to be either gods to be worshipped or demons to be destroyed. "This is why we needed partners," Admiral Chen explained to the Federation leadership as they dealt with the growing political crisis. "Power like ours requires wisdom to guide it, and wisdom comes from multiple perspectives." The solution that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A new form of government that operated on multiple levels of reality simultaneously. The transcended beings, humans, Zentari, Vex and others who had chosen evolution, became the Guardians. They operated primarily in the quantum layers of reality, maintaining the fundamental forces that kept the galaxy stable and protecting against threats from outside normal space-time. The biological species became the shepherds. They handled day-to-day governance, trade relations, diplomacy, and all the countless details of running a galactic civilization. Most importantly, they served as the connection between transcended consciousness and the experience of biological life. You make sure we remember what it means to be mortal, Admiral Chen told Captain Voss during one of their regular consultations. Power without empathy becomes tyranny, no matter how good the intentions. The new system wasn't perfect, but it worked. Species that accepted the protection of the Guardians found their worlds safeguarded against disasters. Their research accelerated by subtle guidance, and their conflicts resolved through opportunities for peaceful solutions. Species that rejected the new order were left alone, but also left unprotected when they faced problems beyond their capabilities. Over the following years, most came to accept that the galaxy had entered a new era, not an era of human dominance, but an era of cooperative transcendence where different forms of consciousness work together for the benefit of all life. The real test came 50 years later when long-range sensors detected another threat, approaching from intergalactic space. This time it was a swarm of dark energy entities that consumed entire star systems to fuel their expansion across the universe. The response was swift and coordinated. Guardian-level consciousness analyzed the threat across multiple dimensions, while Shepherd-level governments evacuated populations and coordinated resources. The threat was neutralized before it reached inhabited systems. Its dark energy converted into beneficial force that actually improved the stellar nurseries where new stars were born. This is how it's supposed to work, Dr. Yenna observed to her colleagues in the Transcendence Council. She had chosen evolution and now existed as both individual consciousness and part of the collective Guardian network. Not one species trying to protect everything alone, but all species contributing their unique strengths. The galaxy had learned that transcendence wasn't about abandoning what you were, but about becoming more than what you thought was possible. Humans had shown the way, but they hadn't walked the path alone. In the quantum layers of reality where the Guardians operated, Admiral Chen's consciousness touched the vast network of minds that now watched over billions of worlds. Each species that joined brought new perspectives, new capabilities, new ways of understanding the infinite complexity of existence. And in the biological realm, species that chose to remain in their original forms found their lives enriched by the knowledge that they were part of something greater, protected but not controlled, guided but not commanded, free to grow and explore and become whatever they were capable of becoming. The message that had appeared in the human research facilities so long ago had proven true. We will return when the galaxy is ready. The galaxy was ready, and humanity had kept their promise, returning not as conquerors but as partners in the greatest adventure consciousness had ever undertaken, the exploration of infinite possibility itself. Far beyond the edges of the Milky Way, other galaxies were beginning to show signs of similar evolution.